All right. Yeah, I want to talk about the stuff that Tess was talking about a couple days ago. Basically, there's some seems to be controversy about the kind of parameters and switches that are in the Linux binary. And so I wanted to play around a little bit today just to see, do they actually do anything? Because typically, this kind of thing, I think it maybe is more common to see it in like, a shortcut that you would use to launch your game, like the game client. Um, yeah, so let me see if I can bring up my game client. And so I have a shortcut to Painkiller Plus Plus, and you can see in the shortcut the target has a switch which is dash L scripts, and it's targeting the PK Plus pack. That's to load the game with Painkiller Plus Plus, obviously. Um, but anyways, there seemed to be some confusion whether or not these did anything. So you have like interface, for example. So what I did is I put two interfaces on my server. Hopefully this is clear enough that you can see it. So you have one hardwired interface, 10.9.8.244, okay? And to test this out, I enabled a second one, the wireless, 10.9.8.246. So I have two interfaces. And then I made sure that my server config had nothing defined for the network interface. So you can see I grepped the string for that in the config. There's nothing there. There's no value. Okay, so I start the server, put it in the screen, and then I don't put any switch after it. I just run the binary, no switch defined whatsoever. And then I check to see, did the screen actually go through? It says yes, it went through. And then I do netstat to check for it, and you can see down here it's running under the localhost address 127.0.1.1, and this is the port. This port was defined in the config. And then if we keep going down, that's just me grepping the port alone. And then, so what I did is I tested going in the client and trying to just go find the game server. Now remember, I didn't define the interface to run on here, and nor did I define the interface to run on with like a parameter. So I just wanted to see, would it choose one over the other? Would it choose anything at all? Would it choose the first interface? Would it choose the second interface? And so it turns out when I went into the game client, I went to both IP addresses. So I tried both 244 and 246 on the 3457 port, and none of them would respond. So it literally, the game server was running off of localhost. Now I don't know if that's going to be the same for everyone across the board, or if it's just something to do with how my local host is set up. But that's what I got. That's the result that I got. Now I went into the screen. I exited out the screen, the Painkiller server. This time I specified an interface for it to run on. So I ran it as a screen again, and I specified the wireless interface this time. And so there's a screen, made sure it was running. And if I go down, I just want to show that yes, I do have the interfaces, the two interfaces there after running the server a second time. and just grepping it again. And it's like this switch actually works. So I specified it, and then this time when I grep it in netstat, it actually shows up as running on that IP. And again, I'm showing that in the config, the network interface is not defined at all. And then this time when I went into the client, I specified that IP and that port, and it connected successfully. So I really think that, you know, those switches do work. I haven't tested all of them, like port and stuff. I can try that, but they definitely do something. I'm also going to test just not putting any parameter after the binary and just putting the interface. And I'm pretty sure that works because that's how I was doing it before. But I'm also going to test that. Okay, so let's test the port. Okay, so I did a cat on the config. You can see I grepped the port, and currently the server port is set to 3457. So let's go in there and actually change it. Change the server port. We'll put it to nothing. Just make it blank. I'm wondering if I should put it as empty quotes. I'll just try that. I don't know if just leaving it blank is better, but I'll just try empty quotes. And so now when we search port, it's empty. But this time, let's specify port in our command and see if the port works. So we'll do 3475, just to be different. Let's see if that goes through. So let's check our screen, make sure that the screen is running. Oh, it doesn't run. So I'm guessing it didn't run because it crashes. Let's see. Server initialization failed. I wonder if there's something already on that port. No. Okay, let's see here. So maybe it's because of the config, like maybe the config doesn't like the empty double quotes. So instead of that, because it's not like a string, it's supposed to be a number. You can see all the numbers don't have any quotes around them, so that's probably why. So I'm going to get rid of that and just make it 0. Just make it 0. And let's see if it likes that instead. Let's go back to 7.5. Unexpected symbol near. Okay, so again, the config is freaking out because it doesn't like how its syntax is. So okay, so what I did is I just took out that line out of the config completely, and then it went through. But I still specified the port, passing the parameter to the binary. So let me just cat, or I'll grep the port. How's it? Why is it still there? Oh, it fills it in. So I took that line out completely, but it automatically fills it in. So I really think the port parameter doesn't do shit, but the interface command, or the interface parameter, definitely works. Okay, so far only interface works. We tried port. The binary was freaking out when you try to run it. And like basically if you go in, because it's a decimal, not a decimal value, but it's a numerical value, right? For port in the config, you can't surround it in quotes, because anything surrounded in quotes is going to be a string. And you can't leave it blank either. And even if I try to remove that line completely out of the config, as soon as I run the binary, even if I try to specify the port as something like I tried to do 3475, it actually ignored that completely, populated the config.ini with its own port, which was just like the default port, the 3455. And so that's what happens with the port command. It's just, this does not work at all. Okay, so what about if we get rid of the server name completely? It's a string. It shouldn't freak out if that is empty. So let's try it. Let's just get rid of it. Have that empty. And we're going to get rid of the port command because we already know that that doesn't work. And let's try name. Let's do plus name. Plus name. Holic plus plus. Dual 69. How about that? Let's try it. Okay, so the server runs. Let's see if the game actually will show the server name. Actually, I think I can do the server info command. No, I can't. Never mind. Let me try running the game and see what the game shows. Okay, let's try running the game.
Painkiller.
Just stretch this out because it looks like the window is like super tiny. Oh, I guess I can't do that at the same time. Anyways, hopefully you can see this. Multiplayer, join the game. Alright, so I tried different names. I figured maybe it didn't like the plus plus in the name or something, because sometimes this will be considered like an operator in Linux. So I took that out and that didn't work. So I was like, oh, maybe even numbers it doesn't like. And so I just tried like straight letters, and that didn't work. So it looks like this command, this parameter does not do anything. So really, I think that's all of them. I don't think there's any other parameters that are left, because this is like for connecting. Again, these are more kind of like Windows. Like if you go in here and you want your shortcut, even though this uses a dash instead of a plus, it's more or less the same thing. So it might be that these are left over from Windows. But this one definitely worked. The interface one definitely worked. So connect would be like if you want to connect to a specific IP or server. Play the recording, dedicated server, which is pointless because Linux doesn't have a native client. So the only thing it has is a dedicated server. So this is a moot point. Private, that's like a LAN only. Could test that, not really interested in that. Actually, let's test that. Okay, so we have the private switch, right? You can have a private server, which is just on the LAN, or you can have an internet server, which is going to be internet facing. It's going to be advertising out to the internet. So what that means is that your game server is going to advertise itself out to GameSpy. Well, not GameSpy, but OpenSpy. OpenSpy is just a registry to accept those advertisements. And so currently my config is set to be public. It's a public server. So this is a Boolean value, true or false. So let's see if I do the private switch. Is it going to override that entry in my config? Is it going to leave it? Is it going to do nothing? I don't know. I guess let's try this to see if it overrides it. And if it doesn't override it, we'll take out that entry altogether, specify this parameter, and see if it works. Okay, let's try running the game.
Painkiller.
Is it gonna work? Seems like it works. I'm able to connect to it.
Fight.
Alright. But what about the config? Did that value get overwritten? Well, let's check it out. No, it's still there. It's still set as public. Okay, so let's get rid of that value altogether. Let's first shut down the server so it doesn't freak out while I'm ripping values out while the server is running. Public. Let's get rid of this altogether. Okay, exit, save it, private. Well, first let's search. Okay, that value doesn't exist. Private doesn't exist either. I already searched for that. So those two values don't exist in the config. We're going to specify the private parameter. See if it does anything. It runs. Okay. What about the config? Let's cat the config. We're going to grep search. Public server equals false. Interesting. So I wonder, even if I don't specify that parameter, let's say if I rip this out and I don't specify that parameter, is it going to auto-populate? My guess is that it will. Actually, let's see if does it show up in my LAN list if I do that.
Painkiller.
I don't think it does. I think it has to be the same PC in order for it to even show up in here, which is really weird. Alright. Let's shut it down. We're going to get rid of that completely. And we're also going to get rid of this value completely. Okay. I bet you, even if I don't have that value in the config and I don't specify private, it's still going to populate that entry in the config. Okay, so let's check. Let's first grep and make sure that it in fact does not exist in the config. Private doesn't exist. It's not even an option. Let's get rid of the private thing. Okay. The server runs. Yep. It just populates automatically. So it seems like that parameter is like the other ones. Does not do anything. because private is the default. Unless it's already configured to be a different Boolean value. Like if it's already configured to be true or false, it's probably just going to ignore it. If it doesn't exist at all, go to the default local private server setting. Oops. Let's cat that again. Make sure it's there. True. Alright, I think that pretty much does it for all the parameters. There's name, map. Map, I guess I could try. Speed, I don't really know what that means. Password. Don't know what that means. I think that's it. I think that's all I'm willing to really test out.